Adoption and Children's Literature by Shekini Jennings. Reading 559. Next page. Part 1. Overview and Background Information. Next page. According to Gilmore and Bell, 2006, only 68% of children live with the traditional family of father, mother, and child. Nearly 1 million children in the United States are adopted. Also, adoption of children from other countries has more than doubled from 6,720 in 1992 to 16,396 in 1999. Children who were raised in such non-traditional households need to experience literature that represents their lives. When they see themselves in literature, their confidence and motivation increase. Also, when parents and teachers share literature with children, it helps them realize that children who live in these families are important. It offers a way to safely and reasonably discuss serious issues about families. Next page. Part 2. Using literature about sensitive issues. Next page. Meese 2012 shares a list of 4 checkpoints to help teachers choose literature that is sensitive and appropriate. First, teachers are urged to make sure the literature doesn't include stereotypes. The adopted characters shouldn't be described as troubled, difficult, or pitied. They also shouldn't have to perform superhuman feats to gain a family. Caregivers also shouldn't be characterized as abusive or evil. Second, teachers should examine the book's development of adopted characters. Stories that teachers choose should include both male and female characters that have realistic actions and emotions. They should also choose stories that emphasize acceptance of all types of contemporary families. Third, teachers should check the plot carefully. They shouldn't choose books that feature characters who obtain families through good luck, physical skill, or extraordinary abilities. They should choose books that portray adopted children as individuals who have families and who handle situations in realistic ways. They should be believable stories of acceptance and love and care for one another. Fourth, teachers should match book themes to development issues. Books written at a child's reading level are not guaranteed to be appropriate reading for every child. Teachers need to consider the general developmental needs and specific developmental issues of adopted children. Next page. Wilson, 1998, further discusses book selection and provides a list of children's books it deems appropriate about the topic of adoption. The author states that books should be free of unclear distinctions between temporary foster parents and permanent adoptive parents. The terms are not synonymous. They should be free of demeaning references to adopted children as charity cases. They should also be free of offensive language such as bullying non-adopted children by using "you're adopted" as an insult. In fact, Scholastic Incorporated deleted such an offensive reference to adoption in its Babysitter's Little Sister series after adoptive parents complained. Next page. On the contrary, carefully selected books about adoption can help adopted and non-adopted children understand basic truths about adoption. They include the facts that adopted children were born the same way other children are. Adoptions happen after a child is born. Birth parents choose adoption because they can't care for a child, and adoption requires adults to make tough choices with lifelong consequences. Those truths also include the fact that adoption is a legal process that forever binds a child to a new family, giving the child the same rights as if born into that family. People in adoptive families love each other just like people in other families. A family formed by adoption is a real family. Next page. This article lists more than 25 carefully selected children's books. Several of them include Adoption by Fred Rogers, Did My First Mother Love Me by Catherine Miller, Happy Adoption Day by John McCutcheon, Pablo's Tree by Pat Mora, and Tell Me Again About the Night I Was Born by Jamie Lee Curtis. They are discussed in more detail in the next few paragraphs. Adoption does a great job of sharing a racially diverse look at several adoptive families. It shows how adoptive families are the same as any other family. It starts by showing a room full of newborn babies in a hospital who are all just ready to live and be loved. It goes on to explain that children can become part of a family by being born into it or adopted into it, but both are very important parts of their families. The author also shares that he has an adopted sister. Just like in all families, it shows that adopted children have happy days, sad days, and angry days. But on all those days, they still love each other. It also shows other ways that adoptive families are the same as other families in that they go places together, work together to help around the house, comfort each other, and share celebrations. The book also discusses the importance of families having conversations when questions about adoption arise. Did my first mother love me? Is a sweet way to answer the question that many children eventually have after learning they are adopted. It's a story about a girl who asked her adoptive parents this question and the response they shared with her. The majority of the book is a letter that her adoptive parents had from her birth mother. In it, the birth mother explains what an important time it was for her life to learn that she was going to have a baby. She explains how exciting it was to experience her growing inside and how she spent those months singing to her as a developing child and whispering that she loved her. But sadly, she knew she wouldn't be able to keep her when she was born. So she spent her months wishing for a loving family to care for her. She was relieved when she knew that would happen. The story ends with the child content with what was shared in the letter and content with her adoptive family. Following this story, the book also includes a special section that includes tips for talking with children about adoption. Happy Adoption Day shares the excitement adoptive parents feel as they welcome their new family member. It briefly discusses a journey the family had to take to make their family complete. Despite any circumstances that caused them to meet, and despite any racial or cultural differences, they are still a loving family. The book closes with the words and music for a song written by the author, Happy Adoption Day. Pablo's Tree is a story about the special bond between an adopted child and his grandfather. It shares how excited Pablo's grandfather was as he waited for his daughter's adopted son to be born. He planted a tree at his home the day he met his new grandson and decorated it every year for his birthday. His grandson was always excited to visit his grandfather and see how he decorated the tree each year and to play with his toys by the tree. Tell Me Again About the Night I Was Born is a story about how the birth of a child is as exciting for adoptive parents as it is for birth parents. The book is written as the response to an adopted child's questions about the night she was born. It shares how the adoptive parents jumped out of bed in the middle of the night, rushed to the hospital, cried happy tears the first time they saw her, and and held her and lovingly tried to protect her from germs as they went home together. It also talks about the child's new mother singing lullabies and her father telling her about baseball their first night together as a family. Next page. Part 3. Literature and Strategies for Meaningful Learning. Next page. According to Maddox and Crawford, 2011, literature is a powerful enough medium to provide children of various backgrounds, characters with themes and plots that are similar to their own life experiences. It can be used as a tool to address challenging topics in the classroom and offer opportunities to understand the cultures, insights, traditions, and beliefs of others. Children need literature that serves as mirrors to reflect their own experiences and windows to see differences. For this reason, Maddox and Crawford decided to study picture books of and for adopted children in order to develop a better recognition and understanding of content of these books and how they can be used within a classroom setting. According to Maddox and Crawford, 2011, dozens of children's books focusing on adoption are available for every reading group. In fact, many popular books, like Harry Potter, feature main characters who are adopted. 4 major overlapping themes are prevalent in adoption picture books. Those themes are the adopted child is precious, the search for identity, the pursuit of adoption, and the need to establish a sense of belonging. Each theme is discussed in more detail in the next few paragraphs. Next page. According to Maddox and Crawford, 2011, picture books that focus on the theme, the precious child, make an effort to highlight the significance of adopted children, not only as people, but as part of a newly formed family. These stories emphasize how cherished adopted children are and how much they are wanted by their adopted families. This is important as children begin to grow and wonder why their birth families did not keep them to raise themselves. Parents who choose to tell their children about adoption at a young age can use these books to help children develop an understanding of adoption in a non-threatening and positive manner. Teachers can use these books to help their students explore different family structures and how all children deserve to be loved and cherished. Several examples of books that focus on the theme of the precious child include We Wanted You by Liz Rosenberg, The Day We Met You by Phoebe Kohler, The Red Blanket by Eliza Thomas, and The Sea Chest by Tony Buzzio. Next page. According to Maddox and Crawford, 2011, picture books that focus on the theme, the search for identity, make an effort to highlight the search for identity that adopted children often experience. They cover the sense of confusion and anxiety that adopted children may feel between the adopted family, birth family, and any cultural differences that may be present. To help with this, parents of adopted children may use books that personify animals in the place of humans. It's a common way to ease the tension between seeking an identity and focusing on differences an adopted child may have with his or her new family. The use of animals also removes racial stereotyping that can arise when human characters are used. Teachers can use these books to help their students explore the important fact that family differences do not stop the love, care, and support a family provides. Instead, differences can make families special and provide an extra way for families to bond and be strengthened. Several examples of books that focus on the theme of the search for identity include Lamoureux by Diana Kempton, Mommy Far, Mommy Near by Antoinette Peacock, We See the Moon by Carrie Kitts, and An American Face by Jan Check. Next page. According to Maddox and Crawford, 2011, picture books that focus on the theme, the pursuit of adoption, make an effort to highlight the adoption process. Much of the process involves home study, interviews, and adoptive parent background checks. Picture books about adoption usually focus on bringing a child into his or her new home with the adoptive family. Similar to The Precious Child, the Pursuit of Adoption theme shares the importance of the adoptive child in the making of the family. Parents can use these books as conversation pieces to talk about their own adoption stories. Teachers can use these books to help students explore how different families are created and help children understand that no two families necessarily become families in the same way. Several examples of books that focus on the theme of the pursuit of adoption include The White Swan Express by Jean Davies Okamoto and Elaine Aoki, I Love You Like Crazy Cakes by Rose Lewis, Rebecca's Journey Home by Brian Ohlenberg Sugarman, and Bringing Asha Home by Uma Krishnaswamy. Next page. According to Maddox and Crawford, 2011, picture books that focus on the theme to establish a sense of belonging make an effort to highlight the child's development of finding his or her own place within the adopted family or community. Parents can use these books to help adopted children see themselves as genuine and authentic members of their adopted families. Teachers can use these books to help students who are struggling to find their place in their family or school. Teachers can also use these books to help students explore how each child is important to his or her own family. Several examples of books that focus on the theme of the need to establish a sense of belonging include Twice Upon a Time, Born and Adopted by Eleanor Patterson, Horace by Holly Keller, Our Twitchy by Kes Gray, and Allison by Alan Say. Next page. According to Stroud, and Staley, 2009, while many books for children deal with traditional adoption, not all stories highlight the same process. So they urge teachers to carefully choose books that match a particular child's adoption story and not just relate a contemporary story. It may be hard, if not impossible, to find books that fit less common adoptive situations. In those cases, the author suggests having the parents make a scrapbook. It will include information from the parents to relate their child's adoption story. That is said to be the best storybook to use in talking to a child about adoption because it is a loving, sensitive, true description of their child and their adoption experience exactly the way it really happened. Next page. Meese, 2012, provides further tips for how to choose safe and sensitive assignments for all students. The article shared a scenario of a first grade teacher who decided to introduce the social studies concept, the timeline, to her class through literature. She chose the story, The 10 Days and Nights, an Adoption Story by Yumi Heo, to introduce timelines because she wanted to be sensitive to students who are adopted. She used events in the story about a girl who was adopted at birth to lead a discussion about the sequence of events. She then sent home a rubric directing her students to create a timeline of the first 6 or 7 years of their life. They were instructed to include at least one major event and photo for each year. While this was a great attempt to create a sensitive and safe assignment, some children are not adopted at birth and do not have access to information or pictures from their earliest years. They and their adoptive parents may not know the exact birthplace, birthday, or developmental milestones. Next page. Instead of requiring an event and photograph for each year, the article suggests also giving students the option of choosing a favorite year and creating a timeline of about 7 events from that year. Another idea for this assignment is to give students the option of choosing a best day or best month and create a timeline of about 7 events from that time period and use stickers or draw and color illustrations for the events as a substitute for photographs. As children grow older, they may be required to write an autobiography, create a family tree or life poster, interview grandparents or elders about family traditions and histories, and discuss genetics. These assignments all pose challenges for children who are adopted. Next page. An alternate assignment option may include giving students the option of writing an autobiographical account of a favorite year or life event. Another alternate assignment option may include giving students the option of interviewing an elderly neighbor or family friend as opposed to requiring them to interview grandparents and family elders. Providing such a range of choices will help children to show that they understand the concept without standing out as different from classmates or receiving a failing grade because of uncontrollable circumstances like the lack of information or photos. Next page, Part 4, Final Thoughts. Next page. Overall, children's literature and class activities involving children's literature can be a positive experience for adopted children when they feel appropriately represented. Thoughtfully chosen materials and activities can not only make adopted children feel included and treasured, but they can also expose their classmates to valuable information about experiences that may be different from their own. Next page. Thank you.